have people that are trying to come in. So welcome. We're so excited to have you, and we just want to say a big thank you to our partners, our funding partners at Atlantic Packaging. They really do have a unique program where they aim to provide sustainable packing materials to improve their customers' footprint and enhance their overall experience. They work to find the right recyclable and earth-friendly packaging, which is why they're such a great partner to us, because they're walking the walk and talking the talk like we are too. Just to introduce our little team, Tammy Enright is amazing. She encourages us to think outside of the hive and to really help in our stewardship to adjust people's behaviors. And I think that that's one of the most important and powerful things that we can do in environmental education, is to help make changes with our students. And you'll know that reaches out to the community and to parents. And I'm the director of educational programs. I've been with the BCAW since 2020. I was 18 years in a Montessori classroom prior to that. And so the things that I'm going to show you today are really things that when I was in the classroom, I would have wanted and would have made what you're doing so much easier. And Tallulah Enright is our programs intern. She's amazing. She's a senior in high school, and obviously Tammy's beautiful daughter. And she's helping us with a lot of the admin pieces. And she clearly has been in a beekeeper suit and been out there in the field. So we're just excited to have her help us out. So I just want you don't have to take any notes on any of what I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share this entire presentation with you. Everything that is underlined is a live link. So there's like all these little nuggets of information and items in here that they're just there for you. Just have at your fingertips and, pull from whenever you need them. We're going to talk about inspiration, kind of draw your attention to some teachable moments from my experience in the pollinator garden with students, and then highlight all of the resources that are available to you. And then any questions you all have, we'll talk about. So where to start? You've already picked out the areas that you wanted to focus on. And even at that, it might be a plot of land that really needs you still to like drill into what that space is going to truly end up looking like. So before you get started, I would definitely find out your sun, your shade, and even if it's an area that's going to get a lot of rainfall in that area, if it's under a cover, obviously it's not going to get as much. So just assessing the space. Are you doing raised beds? Are you doing containers? So we'll talk a little bit about the soil that you're going to need for that. But just know before you start buying, because obviously you can go down a rabbit hole of options. And can your students access the space? So, if you have, handy capable students, are they able to get to it? Is it an easy locale for people to get to? And Remy has some experience with this. Mark your garden space as well. At the school that she's at in Georgia, I think your predecessor actually had put out a lot of trees and beautiful things for their garden, and then they were mowed down. So, the district or whoever is maintaining your other space that belongs to the school, they may not know what you're trying to grow. So just be mindful of making sure you mark that space. Preparation, obviously removing weeds, removing rocks, branches, whatever you need to get out of the way. And I know many people are working on that right now. Also consider pests like the ants. And while we don't want to go down, obviously, the path of killing everything, because that's the opposite of what we want to do, you still have to consider your children's safety and your safety too. So, considering things like, do you have black widows out there? Do you have ants? And you can talk to your school about what their pest management plan is and what they recommend on how to prepare that space if you need that assistance. Soil testing is available to you through your extension office. And there's going to, like I said, there's links. So I have your extension contacts to reach out to your extension services in this PowerPoint so that you can find out who to contact in your area. We highly recommend the lasagna gardening method. If you've never done it before, there's a link right here, but you're layering, and I did it with students in the past and they loved it. So you're just layering your cardboard and paper as your weed base. You're adding your compostable materials on top of that. You can mix in your like leaves, twigs, branches, whatever, and then your soil is going to go on top of that. And what you're really trying to do is just create this really nutrient-rich place for your plants to grow. Right now, the recommendation is to do like a 70% soil mix with 30% compost. If you go straight compost, it's all going to just disintegrate so quickly in that first year that you're not going to be left with anything to work with. So that's a good mix. And our local trash dump around the corner actually offers where you can purchase bags of compost, where they've done the composting there, and they're relatively inexpensive. So I would reach out if you can to something like that before necessarily going to a big box store, just to see if you can get a discount. And then of course, water. Are you, I think everyone said that water was available near them. But just making sure that you have a plan for holidays and all of that as well. What to plant. So, this is the part where you can really just get your students involved in it. And everything that I link to is kid friendly as well. So, it may be above their grade level, but it is accessible for kids. One of my favorite things is this eco-regional guide from pollinator.org. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to show you that it really gives you a lot of information based on your sun exposure, your water exposure, what type of soil you have, and then what kinds of pollinators are you trying to attract. So I want to get down here to the actual menu. And they do give you some information about like the pollinator syndromes, what those pollinators are looking for as far as the type of plant. So then, yes, so this is really tiny. I'm blow it up a little bit so you can see. It will tell you the blooming time. They separate it by trees and shrubs, and then there's the perennial flowers, but you can go in and see what color, so you can dial in for what type of pollinator that you want. It tells you when it blooms, as well as, I like this too, they have it separated by vines as well. And then if you keep going, it will get into the sun and the shade part of all of your plants. So you can look this up by your zip code, is how you know which one is your area. They also have these super simple garden cards that dial it in a little bit more and are almost like a ready, like, here's your menu, here's how to do it. It's probably going to take forever to load, so I might skip that and just let y'all explore that. But it's very simple, easy to start with. So that might be a good place to start if you're just a little overwhelmed by it. One of the things that is really unique is the keystone plants by ecoregion. So you can go in there and find out, like, what is a plant that will give you the most bang for your buck in your area. So a lot of native trees and shrubs are huge draws for your pollinators. My husband and I were on a walk in the winter, and the American hollies were blooming, and you could stand there and watch this bush just come alive with the amount of honeybees and bumblebees that were pollinating this plant. And we stopped because my husband was like, wow, look at that. But like, that is that like aha moment that this one plant can provide so very much. So and then, like I said, here are the links to your extension services, so that you can dial into that too. And just a reminder of who are we planting for. I know that you learned all about the pollinator syndromes, of how we can predict what pollinators will go to what plants based on like the compatibility of mouth parts, body parts, and flower color. And remember, our pollinators see in ultraviolet. So there's a really cool link to a video right there so that you can share directly with your students tomorrow if you wanted to. Flower clumping saves energy for pollinators. So if you've ever seen a honeybee out in the backyard on the pollinator or on the clover, they'll just kind of like pop from plant to plant to plant, because specifically honeybees have flower fidelity, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But when you have it clumped together where they're all the same type of flower, it really does help the pollinator not have to go super far to get their needs met, which is why a wildflower meadow will bring you tons and tons and tons of visitors to your space. So that's an easy approach to getting a lot in one big area. Kind of thinking along the lines of like a no-mow area, but you can actually seed it for wildflower meadow as well. So I wanted to give you like menu ideas. And again, I'm going to send this to you so you'll have all of the plant lists. But in our area in the Southeast, these are some of the big front runners for easy to find at your native plant nursery, or if you're forced into like a big box place that you can usually ask for. I'm looking for salvia because I know that will be, well loved by all of our pollinators. So here are just some of the front runners, like I said. Honeybees do have flower fidelity. So a worker honeybee will leave the hive, or if it's not a managed hive, a wild hive in the woods, and she will go out and she's searching for the same type of flower over and over again, because that is the type of nectar that she is taking back to the hive. So we were talking earlier today about tupelo honey. When the tupelo trees are out blooming in the swamp, the honeybees are going from flower to flower to flower. And when they bring it back to the hive, that's how we know that they are creating tupelo honey. Beekeepers actually can have that honey tested to find out it has to have a percentage of the pollen from that plant to be able to call it like tupelo honey, for example. But what that tells us is that when we plant that flower clumping, then we're really supporting that system of them going from flower to flower to flower of the same type of flower. Bees love weeds. So that's another great thing to capitalize on, because if your space is anything like my backyard, it's going to grow clover, dandelions, and henbit all day long. And you can, even if you aren't ready to dig in and do everything all at once, you can rope off a section and just let those natural weeds grow up for your pollinators. And again, just make sure you mark it so it doesn't get plowed by your yard maintenance. And this is like, to me, the most amazing part of teaching any of this are the teachable moments that you're already teaching life cycles, you're already teaching adaptations, but you can use the pollinators to really like show kids what is really happening, and that it's happening right there all the time. And one of my favorite is nectar robbing. And this does go to a video. So our larger bees that can't get inside of a flower that's shaped tubular like this will chew a hole through the side of the flower and suck the nectar out that way. So it's like they're cheating the system to get what they need. But kids love that kind of stuff. That's the hook that brings them in. So when you're, planning your lesson plans, thinking about it isn't just a day out in a garden. You can also bring in your agricultural history, talk about the, George Washington and growing like the crops that they grew at that time. Like you can bring all of your history lessons into it as well. We were requested in the past to offer a lot more social and emotional components to gardening, because that is so important, and it's so easy to do if you're already out there in the space. So in your newsletter, there'll be a section for how to bring that social emotional piece into your classrooms too. Moths are there's daytime moths that are your diurnal moths, but then we call the night moths, they're like the swing shift of the work, right? So you've got your bees and your butterflies and all of the easily recognizable pollinators, but then at night you have your night moths that come out, and they're actually doing, like I said, they're like shift bee. And the Virginia creeper sphinx actually lives its entire life on the Virginia creeper. So that is one of those super plant species that's dialed into the pollinator. So similar to like a monarch butterfly and milkweed is, they have that symbiotic relationship. And so you can really teach like an entire lesson about that one plant and animal that rely on one another. And then when my students and I were making moonflower, which is one of the nighttime bloomers that our moths love, we did it in these little greenhouses made out of cups. So they can even bring something from, they had Chick-fil-A last week and they could bring their cup in and you can help them turn that into a little greenhouse. And I know, Amy, your students do a lot of recycling and reusing of materials. So, using those plastic cups that are one-time plastic, you can use them a second time to create something.
And
Since
rotisserie chicken things are
yeah,
great if you need to do more than one kind of seed at a time. Sorry.
that's wonderful. And to-go containers are really good for that as well. Like any of those, like the metal ones that have the plastic lids on the top, you can turn those into little mini greenhouses on the windowsill in your classroom. Beetles are super fun because they're safe pollinators. Like a beetle isn't going to bite or sting. And I know a lot of times students have like that overreaction to a bee, even though we know that they're not out to sting them. So beetles are another good pollinator that you can observe. And they are one of the first insects to visit flowers. So millions and millions of years ago, beetles were working together with the flowering plants to create this whole pollination system. And they're kind of like the accidental pollinators. They're very they tromp through it. So you get to see like a lot of pollen on their bodies. We have a crepe myrtle, or not crepe myrtle, magnolia tree right outside the window. And when those big blooms are open, you can just watch the beetles running through there. But if you have students that are hesitant to come out, and if a student finds a beetle and they get really excited about it, you can draw the attention of the more fearful students to that pollinator. Flies are also delightful pollinators, even though we don't necessarily like to have them in our homes. They're really attracted to open structure of flower more than colors, and they do like it to be stinky. So they actually are more attracted to brown. So there are brown flowers that you can plant to attract your flies, but they are vital. And this is another cool mimic, is that hoverflies and bee flies mimic real flies. So the images to the right, the top one is actual flies. Then the hoverfly is the one at the bottom, and oh no, on the right, and then the bee fly is at the very bottom. So you can see how they could be mimicked as flies and be confused, but that's part of your adaptations that you're probably teaching already. These are just easy, swing and a hit, right? And then butterflies. So they're open to anything. Butterflies will come to pretty much anything, but they do have the burden of having those long legs and a long skinny tongue. So when you're using like a cone flower and your daisies, those are better for attracting your butterflies because it gives them that disc flower and ray flower side by side. So your disc flowers is what they're actually getting their nectar from. And little known fact, and you all may have already known this, I did not, that milkweed actually makes monarchs poisonous to some of their predators. So they're chomping down and making their bodies essentially poisonous to predators, which I find fascinating. And then your hummingbirds are the only ones that can see red of the pollinators. So the cones in a bee's eyes and a butterfly's eyes don't necessarily see red. So that's why we have the hummingbird kind of takes over the red plants in your space. And there's so many great vines for attracting hummingbirds. Oops. So sorry. All right. My apologies. I thought I had my do not disturb turned on. So just a reminder that Flower Talk, the book that you received in your kit, has a lesson plan on our website. So we have tons and tons of lesson plans on the website if you haven't explored those. And the book clubs especially are tied to some of the books that you received as part of your grant. So of course, it's not going to let me do that very easily. So I will trust that you will click on that link and learn more about our book clubs. And always email me if you want to talk about it or want more suggestions. Our native bees need love too. Just a point of fact that 70% are ground nesters and 30 are cavity nesters. So when your students are outside on the playground and they see the little holes, talk to them about leaving those open and not stepping on them, because that's where our little native bees are preparing their eggs. And then Miss Tammy actually had the coolest experience. Her mom was in the backyard at the picnic table, and the leafcutter bee was cutting a hole and rolling it up like a little cigar and flying over to the picnic table and using where they had sunken the screws into the table to pack with her little rolled up leaves so that she could make her nest and start laying her eggs. So they literally will make space anywhere that they see a fit to create their nest. So, really like being on the lookout for those things and drawing your students' attention to them when you get to see them, because it's happening all around us all the time. And then I also gave you the link for Bee City USA. They provide printable, colorable, shareable signs that you can use to post for your no-mow area. So if that's one of your directions, they've got some good resources for you there. And then, of course, you can always make your own native bee house. This is a link to our friends over at University of Georgia. They have a lesson plan on how you can basically make like this type of native bee house that's in the center. And that might be a really great opportunity for parents to get involved. All those dads that have the drill set that has all the different size bits, and you literally can just go crazy putting them into different types of wood, untreated wood. Your kids can get involved in that too. And also just making piles of leaves, leaving something natural for your pollinators to nest in. And again, it just comes down to making sure that you mark those areas and indicate like why they're there. Otherwise, admin sometimes looks at it like it's, unsightly. But if you're utilizing a space that's kind of out of the way at the edge of the woods or something that you can monitor, then it also provides some good nesting for your natives. And of course, adding water, such a simple thing to do. And just remember that they can't swim. So providing marbles or rocks or something where even a sponge or pool noodles are a good way to create a landing space. And hummingbirds don't drink in the way that like a bee does. They drink on the wing, meaning that they're flying and drinking at the same time. So that's why a lot of people use the solar fountain if you have like a bird bath or something that you want to use. But that, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. Okay. So that's just some food for thought. This was a design that one of our former parents, or not parents, one of our former graduates from the online class did. And this is something that her students came up with. And they designed this based on what they wanted planted in their garden. So they, used a simple program and they picked out which plants they wanted and they picked out where they were going to go. And so that was a really neat experience for them to get to design this together. So this is just one way that they picked. So just wanted to help dial into who is on your resource team at your school. So you've got your administrators, obviously, because you're going to want them protecting what you and your students are out there doing. Your co-educators, but also bring in anyone that has any interest in it. Like Amy was just saying before we got started, like people are really into it once you get started and they take a lot of interest. Librarians, your science, your STEM teachers, those are the people that are going to continue what you're doing in your classroom out in their classrooms as well. Having parents come in to do a DIY native bee house night would be a fun opportunity, and just kind of showing off what you've accomplished. Your cafeteria staff, your janitorial staff, and grounds crew, you're definitely going to want to give them the heads up of what you're doing. And it could be that your cafeteria staff is already working in a garden space to bring in things to the cafeteria to cook with. A lot of schools do that in our area too. And then I just wanted to draw attention to finding local guest speakers. This is a link to finding beekeepers in your area. So you can put your zip code in and it'll give you your local beekeeping association. And beekeepers are typically educators in their own way. They want to come and they want to teach kids about it. So that's another good resource. If you are not already in touch with your 4-H agents, reach out to them. They are going to be able to give you a lot of great resources, and they can also come and do lessons with your students. Boys and Girl Scouts are a great resource too. Many of our bee grant recipients use Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to create, like they have to do projects in order to reach certain levels in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And so we've had Boy Scouts come and build whole structures because it was part of them receiving their next level in their scouting. So, utilizing those opportunities and giving them the place to come do it can be really beneficial for you. And so we ask you to send pictures of like your before and after because you inspire each other. And so this was a garden space here in Charleston that she had seen the split rail fence idea, but did not want to actually install the split rail fence. So these are boards that are laid over top of one another. And so she created just this zigzag, and then all of this space she put, filled in with her plant material. The students clearly designed and created this beautiful pollinator sign, but it really gives them that ownership, right? Of this is our space. So I need to reach out to her and get her to send us the updated version of what this looks like this year. But she had to work within the confines of the school space. And this was just a great opportunity for them. And they also used the logs that for an outdoor seating space so that they could do like outdoor classrooms. This was a school that used, relatively regular, the raised beds. But one of the things that's important for this is, again, student access. So they've used that wood mulch around the outside so that students can walk right up to it. There's no overgrown weeds. There's nothing that's like, it's more like a path as well as keeping the weeds down around it. And raised beds are another good option as long as your students can reach them, because they do make taller ones and shorter ones for our taller and smaller students. I love this. This was an established garden space that then we continued on. So, you might be starting from scratch, or you might already have a space that you're really going to be able to build out. And this particular educator reached out to me and said they wanted to get Monarch Way Station certified. So with her, because everyone is offered an hour of one-on-one time with the Bee Cause team to help talk you through any questions or concerns you have. And she really wanted to dial in continuing to bring the butterflies and reaching out to her local butterfly and moth group to be able to help her with that. Because she just didn't want to miss an opportunity. And she got a lot of help once she, found the right agents to reach out to. And for the little students, the boy in the picture, since they aren't able to touch the butterflies and the bees out in the garden, she has provided them with the smaller, the Safari Limited, where they're very realistic insects. So they're doing a lot of like touching and looking and exploring, and then going out into the garden and observing with their eyes. So they're able to touch, but also able to observe. So I just loved that idea. I thought that was super for our little ones. This is one of the most spectacular bee hotels. And keep in mind that this was all done with within the classroom with, what parents were willing to come and help with. And you can use an older bookshelf as your start. And notice that this is off of the ground because the bees need to be, or the native bee house, they don't like to be directly on the ground. They do like to have some sort of roof structure, and it needs to have a back on it because they don't like it if you can go straight through. So this is just a great representation of a pretty simple, pine cones, wood. They've got some native bee houses in here with the reeds, and then they're really just creating this space and letting the pollinators do the work. And then this one was unique because the art teacher worked with them to create these almost like truly inspired, and it's this is like plastic, so it's something that would have been like a recyclable plastic material, but they turned it into these stylized flowers that were put into their garden as well as their real flowers. But it was just so interesting to see. They had a brick area that I think at one point had been a fountain, and then they turned it into their raised beds. So they just added that extra element. So like bringing in that art teacher or someone's know-how to give you, to just give it more, credence, and to have the kids working on it in different places. All of these are live links, like I said, to some type of resource to help you. Obviously, the landing page for this grant has everything that you should need. Reaching out to your national 4-H. And if you've never created your own binder in National Ag in the Classroom, I highly recommend it. There are really great lessons that are free, and lots of, they bring in a lot of literature. They bring in different, areas of study, and at our different grade levels. So you can dial that in. If you are familiar with Amy Dabbs, she's part of the Because board members, also one of South Carolina's big, she does a lot for school gardening, and she also happens to be my sister. But if you are interested in the community engagement webinar, it talks a lot more about how to bring in outside folks to help you in what you're doing, including your botanical gardens, if you have one in the state, and other resources that you may not have thought about that can come and help. We use the HGIC, which is Home and Garden library, a lot. And that's just because it's Clemson and they're the ones I'm most familiar with. But all of your extension offices will also have some type of where you can dial into what your specific question is. So that's another good resource. And then, of course, the Because library. Grant opportunities to continue what you're doing. So got a couple in here. One of them is South Carolina only. The others are all national. And I think it's the community garden funding. This one lists other grant opportunities. So it's a great big list. They included the kids gardening one in this list. So I really just wanted you to have other opportunities that you can easily dial up and figure out, how to continue the growth of your garden space. And so keep your eye out. I'm going to be sending you an invitation to our OER Commons. If you've never been on there before, it was new to me. Like I said, I was 18 years in the classroom and had never heard of it until I started researching for the Because. But it is a free group of like curated and created materials that we have dialed in for you, that has all of our lesson plans, but then other things that people have created that we know you can use. So it's all in one space, like a hub. Everything is Common Core and Next Generation Science Standards compatible. And I organized it into the folders that I would want if I were doing it in the classroom. So it's like there's different folders, and in each one, there's one piece of each component. So there's a book club, there's a lesson plan, there's a virtual field trip, there's all the things that that you can use. It's lots of content. So it's more than 1 year also. And then, like I mentioned before, you are going to get personalized support from us. Let me know when you want to schedule an hour to chat. It's really helpful if I know what you want, so that I can do the research prior to our meeting. And then when we meet, I can go through everything. And if I take notes, I will share the notes page with you, because I want to make it as easy as possible for you. So if you email me at educator@thebecause.org, we'll figure that out. And you don't have to do it right now. If you want to get started with something, and then if you want to come back, in 2 or 3 months, and we can make a plan then. This is also your opportunity for a Hail Mary if it starts to go in a direction and you're like, I don't know what to do next. So we'll talk it out and we'll figure it out together. And we've also provided a private Facebook group for you all. And when I sent you your welcome letter digitally, it had the link to this. I believe you do have to ask permission, but I'll let you in. And it's really just a way to continue the conversation. Someone had, when they finished the online class, they were like, I want to keep having that dialogue with the people who were in my class. And I was like, great, I've got the right answer for that. So you'll still be able to contact them and work with them, and also people that are past recipients. I think we did the numbers today, and there are 94 schools now that have competed or have completed the online class, and that's multiple teachers at some of those schools. And then you also get a monthly newsletter from me. I think I said at the beginning, this is the thing where even if you aren't using it as it comes out, save it and go back to it when you need something. I'm a big fan of an infographic, which you could always just pull up on your Promethean board or smart board or whatever you have, and just have it there projected for when your students come in. It's information that's been researched, and I like to give lots of little links to things as well. And this is where we also dial into that social emotion component, and lots of hands-on activities. So again, even if you don't use everything that's in there this year, save it. You might need it later. All right. And that is everything that you need to know from us to get started. All of your checks are in the mail, so keep your eye out for that. A couple of little goodies in there for you, and then a printout of your the welcome letter as well, just so that you can just tuck that in a binder, because I know you love a binder as much as I do, and pull it out when you need to circle back and figure out, oh yeah, I can go into that. So what questions do you have? Did we cover it? Did we just nail it? The Facebook page, Joyce, it is a private page that really only the people who are part of this grant have access to. I like to drop little nuggets of video reels or pictures, or like just interesting things that I find, and you are welcome to do the same, things that your coworkers will be able to use. There's so many free things out there, but y'all know that free doesn't always mean good. So if you find something that is free and good, we would love for you to post it there for everyone to have access to, just making it easy for everyone. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
I have one
Yes.
question, and it might be a very silly question.
Yep.
So you mentioned, like prepping your space and getting rid of the ants and whatnot, and that's a huge problem that we have. We have a ton of ants and a ton of wasps, and that has been something that we were trying to do, and like not do things that are harmful to our bees too. Are there any suggestions of ways to combat those?
Yeah. The ants are really hard because they're, when it rains, it drives them out. You guys, a lot like us, you don't get that hard freeze that drives them deep into the ground. I would say you probably have a maintenance company that manages the lawn space there. And they're required to have a pest management plan. So you can talk to them about that and see what they are utilizing. Now, that is not to say that what they're utilizing is the best product. So I would say for the wasps, I've seen a lot of people use the fake wasp nest. Have you seen this? Where it's like paper and you hang them, and it deters the wasps from coming, because they recognize that's a wasp nest. So they stay away because they don't want to share the space. It might be worth a try, but because you're obviously going to want to avoid using any kind of spray.
Right.
Tammy, do you have any? Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say fire ants, especially in the South, are such a big deal, a big problem. And Remy, I can't remember where your school is. Where is
Savannah,
it?
Georgia.
They're May Howard.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I don't know why I was like having a moment. One of the things to look at, I'm sure Georgia Extension has some ideas on their website. I know that Clemson Extension has some integrated pest management plans for fire ants. And a lot of them do not have to do with poisons. So you can call the Master Gardener office. They might have some even some good ideas or tidbits or tricks that aren't necessarily published on their website as well, because they don't want to stand behind it as an extension agency, but they
Mhm.
sort of know what works.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Emily is right. You probably at a minimum need to reach out to your school's maintenance department and see what their plan is. And, depending on the level of where your kids are with research and stuff like that, it might be something that you could even get somebody in the kids in the school to do some homework,
Mhm.
and then they could educate the current maintenance department on, ways that they could help manage the ants without hurting the bees.
Mhm.
Which is funny because that's exactly what May Howard, your predecessor, I cannot think of her name off the top of my head.
Mary Beth.
Yes, Mary Beth,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
her students did that for the honeybees. They
Yeah.
got the people that do the spray to come in, and she's like, I don't think they were going to change any of their plans, but they listened to the students. And isn't that part of what we're doing in environmental education, is to even just to draw attention to it to the adults, right? So she invited all the, people to come in and listen to the kids. And I think that's so powerful.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, I also think, one of the questions when we had schools early on get worried about inviting bees to their campus on purpose, especially what surprised me was the kids who have allergies to bees. Those parents were not as nervous as the kids who did not have allergies. And it was because the kids who are allergic to bees are more educated, they're educated on how to keep themselves safe. And so if they're doing this process, going through this process or doing this research project, even if they don't get the answers they want from the school, they may come up with ways to wear proper shoes, make sure you watch where you're stepping, like things like that, that will help them keep themselves safe. That would again, help protect the bees because it's less poison out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's a really good point about the education piece, because, you're going to have kids that are going to squeal, right? They're going to respond to it, but how we respond to it matters so much too, right? Like how we model that behavior is so important too. Just about educating. All right. Amy, Joyce, you guys have anything for us? I know it's Thursday afternoon. I know you're all ready probably to go home and relax. It's about to be a nice long weekend, and I hope you guys get to take that time for yourselves and your families. So we just appreciate you being here with us.
Absolutely. Thank
Joyce,
you, Emily.
Joyce, I will send you the Facebook page link, and then you will be able to access it. I will send you that in just a few minutes.
Oh, poor Joyce.
No worries.
Emily, thank you so much for running another successful cohort. I mean, I sort of followed on the sidelines and was just amazed at all the interaction and the sharing that was happening. And I think we're just getting better and better. And we're only as strong as, we are together, right? It doesn't matter if it's just us in a vacuum. So, so thank you, Amy, Joyce, Remy, and the other 20-something educators for really participating and putting your so much effort into the program. We really appreciate it. And we learned probably more from you than you learned from us this time. So we appreciate it.
This was a really dynamic group. So thank you for your participation in the online class. I know it can be grueling when you're trying to enjoy your summer, but it is important information, and I'm so glad that you all took us up on the offer. So thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's stay in touch.
Yes. Stay in touch and have a great long weekend, y'all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.